Tejasvinavadidamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Gently open your eyes. Namah Shivaya. It's good to have you back again today. And today is the last day we will be talking about the kleshas. So we've gone through 4 of the 5 kleshas: avidya, misknowing, asmita, egoism, raga, attachment to pleasure, devasya, hatred, and now we come to abhidabhesha, which is the fear of death. And this is one that is really very hard to wrap our heads around, because if you were raised here in the West, we tend to hide death. We don't really come in contact with it very often. In countries like India, where you still don't have like a full industrialized nation, you have people who die at home, and children see dead bodies, and the dead bodies are brought through the street. And so death, you come more in contact in a very realistic way with death. Here in the States, we tend to like not take children to funerals. We don't talk about death. I can remember when my great-grandmother passed away, and I was very young, and my parents told me that she went to sleep. Like, they didn't know how to really, talk about death. They were as uncomfortable with talking about death as they were sex, and it was kind of it took a long time for me to understand death, and how death, that we're all going to be touched by it at some point. From knowing people who die, and to facing our own immortality. The thing that for me really, and I've been talking a lot about this, I usually don't talk about my time as a young man when I first came to New York City in 1987. But when I came to New York City, New York City and the rest of the nation was in the midst of the HIV crisis, and you knew people who died, who were your age, who were, I was in my early 20s, 21, 22, and people who I went to school with, college with, that we got out of college, and the next thing you heard was that this person had passed away, or that person had passed away. And I went to art school, so a lot of the community was in the arts community was affected by HIV, and it really took about 10 to 15 years before I started to understand what was the relationship with death on a personal level. And it changed, it really helped me to understand that at some point we're all going to die, and sometimes people even die earlier than what you would think that they should die. And this idea of denying that and attaching ourselves to the idea that we'll just kind of live forever is going back to these 4 other kleshas: the attachment to misknowing, the attachment to ego, the attachment to the feeling of pleasure, the feeling of hatred. These are all experiences that you just have in the body. And getting over the attachment to the body is one way, is the biggest way to let go of these other 4 kleshas, to accept that you're just not going to live forever. and that the ending can come at any moment, you know. Um, that is kind of the sobering effect of what this whole pandemic has been about too. That, like, you know, we start to realize that, you know, the body is just very, very, very fragile. Um, as you really dive deep into your yoga practice and go deeper into yoga scripture and the message that yoga brings. Yoga really does teach us that life is nothing more than a preparation for death. That uh, we you're not focusing on death in some kind of macabre gothic way. That's a misunderstanding. Uh, Even though there are certain yogic practices and sects that do that in India, they're very few and very minor. But it is on a broader scale, that idea: I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I, the body will get sick, the body will get old, the body will finally die because it's organic. Um, and I have a limited time in the body to make spiritual advancements. And when I say spiritual advancements, I'm not saying religious advancements. Don't confuse spirituality with religion. You know, your time in the body is really meant to understand, you know, your true identity and to be of service to others. Um, at some point, when something happens, or, you know, whether it's illness, or that idea of, you know, being on death's doorstep or on a deathbed, or knowing the ending is coming, is not the time to prepare for death. You know, that's a very, you see that a lot in kind of Western movies, in with Catholic themes sometimes of the person who didn't leave a good spiritual life according to Catholicism, and then at the moment of their death, they bring in the priest, and the priest utters some words, and, you know, makes some mudras and gestures, and, you know, offers a little sacred water and oil, and says a prayer, and, you know, all of a sudden, you know, 30 years of not living life to its full spiritual potential is just absolved, and, like, you know, you're ready for death. Um, Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. It really, really doesn't. Um, as we go through life, we always have to understand that our actions are building up as karma. And if we keep building those karmas up, we will have to come back and take another form and and burn off those karmas. So we'll have to live that whole cycle again of being born, experiencing these kleshas, experiencing death, and that cycle will just continue. The goal of yoga is to get out of that cycle. So by getting out of that cycle, we start to accept that the body will die, that the soul within the body is eternal. It's it's infinity. It is connected to the higher source, and when we start to identify with that, that is yoga. That is what Patanjali is trying to get you to connect to, And that's why he's giving you these five hindrances so that you can overcome them and start um, to attach to something other than the finite. Um, so taking a moment and setting up tall. Close your eyes and allow your senses to come inward. And the breath, the life force, the prana, is so important in the meditation practice. When Patanjali gives you the 8 limbs of yoga, pranayama is one of those limbs. And he wants you to experience the life force in regards to these kleshas, that life begins with the first inhale and life ends with the last exhale. And so as you inhale, enjoy the breath of life in the body. Let it be full. Let it be complete. And as you exhale, enjoy the full exhale. Inhale deeply. And exhale fully. Inhale deeply. Exhale fully. As you inhale, silently say to yourself, I. And as you exhale, silently say to yourself, am. Inhale, I. Exhale, am. And experiencing infinity at the end of each am. Continue this on your own. If thoughts come, let them rise and fall. Resist the urge to attach yourself to the thoughts, the emotions, to the discomfort of the body. Focus on the deep inhales and complete exhales. Continue deep inhales and full, complete exhales. Inhale I, exhale silently tell yourself, I'm not this body. Silently tell yourself, I'm not this mind. Silently tell yourself, I'm not these thoughts. Silently tell yourself, I'm not these emotions. I am infinity. everlasting and eternal. Inhale deeply for the sound of Om. Bringing the hands together, rubbing the hands together, building heat within the hands. And bringing the hands over the eyes, allow the heat from the hands to be absorbed into the eyes. Then gently open the eyes, bring the hands across the forehead, the top of the head, the back of the neck. Bring the hands together, bowing down, allowing the forehead to touch the thumbs. Namaste. So these teachings, I wanted to just say that even though these kleshas end with a bit of besha, and this idea of accepting the ending of life, don't misunderstand it. Don't think that it's not saying not to live life to the fullest, not to enjoy the experience of life. Unfortunately, that is also one of the great misunderstandings of this tradition, is that when people say, "Oh, well, I accept that this is not the ultimate reality," that I have to then renounce everything around me or not enjoy the world. No, you're here to enjoy it fully, but don't become attached to it. Don't allow that the identification and the highest form of satisfaction comes from the material experience. But yes, you've been put here in the body, and you have a body, you have a mind, so that you can experience life fully. So I want to reinforce that. This is not a macabre practice. It's not a practice of focusing and hoping for the ending of the body, but it is an acceptance of the body is organic, that it's part of nature. Just like a leaf that during the spring buds and pops out on a branch of a tree and lives its life through summer, and then in fall that leaf changes color and falls off and falls to the ground, and through the fall rain and the winter rots and decays, and then spring a leaf comes back. It's more like that. It's reconnecting to nature's cycle. Beloved, I will see you tomorrow.